Hi everyone, Hayden here at the Etrailer. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Kuat Piston Pro 4-bike rack and seeing how it fits on the back of our 2021 Ford Ranger. Now, this is going to be a really high-end platform-style bike rack that mounts up into your 2-inch by 2-inch hitch. So if you're looking for a hitch-mounted rack, you're in the right place. That might not be my first choice for carrying bikes on the Ranger since you do have the truck bed, but there are a lot of benefits to hitch-mounted racks, like the way they hold the bike. It does hold them pretty solid, and this one is carbon frame friendly because it makes no frame contact on the bike. Holding it by these dual wheel mounts right here, it's going to be a good option for those alternative frames and, like we said, carbon frames. A lot of times I would recommend something like a tailgate pad for truck owners just because they're really cost effective, they don't take up much space, and it doesn't stick out from the back of your truck very much. But those aren't going to be a good option for the carbon frames because you're relying on wedging that frame over your tailgate and then running a strap over it. So frame contact could damage it. With this, it is going to be a really high-end rack that has a lot of high-end features. So one of those big ones is the ability to tilt away with the bikes loaded. Now, this is something you want to take a lot of caution with. It's not a one-person job. I can do it right now on my own because I don't have it fully loaded, but this is where the release pedal is, right by the front tray. So reaching through the other 3 bikes that are potentially loaded up here is just not going to be feasible. And because it's a 108-pound rack with a possible 30 pounds per bike capacity, it's going to be a lot of weight coming down at once. So have someone there to pull the lever and ease the weight down a bit. With this, you still don't get full access to your tailgate because it will make contact with the rack. But tilting it does give you a lot more room to walk in here and grab stuff out of the truck bed if we need it. So shoes, helmets, snacks, sunscreen, things like that, we can get that. And then when we're done, just tilt this back up by lifting it at the back end, and that pedal will snap back into position. On top of the rack, there's going to be some points for cable locks to feed through our bikes and lock to the rack for security. And the big thing with the piston here is going to be the arms. These buttons on the end will release those arms and open this up. So it is going to be hard, again, because of the 4-bike rack, having to stand back here and lean over so far. If you've got an extra set of hands, that could help. But just hit those buttons, and it will open up those arms. Sometimes, depending on the tread of your tire, it might get stuck. But do that on both sides, and then you can lift your bike up and away. So the fact that those arms will open themselves up and hold themselves open until we're done loading or unloading can be really helpful. And then when you're done, you can push them all the way down, or when you load up your bike, this is what's going to cinch down on your tire. Listening to that ratcheting mechanism, you can hear all the fine teeth adjusting. So there's a lot of adjustment here, and you can get a nice tight hold on the bike. And these hoops are very easy to adjust just by pinching these tabs and moving them up to fit the diameter of your wheel, depending on what you have. Now, I will say, if you like the rack so far, you might consider checking out the Piston Pro X. It's going to be the upgraded version of this rack that has things like Kashima coating on those piston arms, as well as tail lights built into the back to help improve visibility by plugging into your 4-pole wiring on your Ranger. Largely, they are the same rack, but the Pro X has a few more of those convenience features that you might be interested in. Now, in this position, we're going to take some measurements. I'm going to actually start off with the ground clearance. At the back end, from the lowest point to the ground is 33 inches. There is a slight rise throughout the whole bike rack where each tray sits slightly higher than the next. That will help with bike-to-bike contact and also improve your ground clearance. On your Ranger, it's not going to be a concern for bottoming out. So just keep it in mind in terms of loading things up, because that is the distance you're going to have to lift your bikes. It sticks out a long ways from the back bumper. Going from that furthest point out to the end of the rack, it's going to be coming in right at 51 inches, which is pretty extreme. When you're driving around, it's just a lot of length to add to your truck. Pulling into parking spots, changing lanes while you're driving to your destination, it's all things to be aware of. but we can fold it up by using that same pedal as before and lifting. I will say this lift is the harder one. Again, 108-pound rack. Once you get it past that halfway point, it'll carry itself the rest of the way and lock back in. And now only stick out 16 inches. So this is much more manageable. In terms of driving around, there's some things to keep in mind still. It's going to completely block your backup camera because this is a pretty bulky rack. It is going to kind of block your tail lights just a little bit. You'll see some of them around, but it does line up in front of them and will cause some obstruction going down the road, which is another reason why that Pro X might be a favorable alternative to you. And this last tray does sit above your bed rails and comes into pretty clear visibility range of your back window. So when you're backing out and trying to use that rear view mirror, you're going to see this and it's going to be an obstruction. You can still see around it, but again, because of the bulkiness of it, I wouldn't rely on that solely for information. Check your rear view mirrors and your side mirrors, and just be extra cautious when backing out. It does have a built-in anti-rattle device. Just by tightening down the security key at the back with the included tool, and that will secure it in the 2" by 2" receiver tube. The hitch pin is going to be a locking hitch pin, key to those locking points on top of the tray for the cable lock, so it is the same key system. The Pro X has a included tool that stores on the rack. It's the same style, but it stores on the rack, so you don't have to worry about forgetting it. Whereas with this, you got to keep track of that tool, which is a minor gripe, but it's just something else to consider. And overall, like I said, I would recommend for truck owners more often than not a tailgate pad. It's going to be the better alternative, I think, just because it's easier to work with. And if you want a premium one, Kuat does make the Kuat Huck. It can store more bikes, up to 5 in total, and it's just going to be easier to work with. But if you are set on having a hitch-mounted bike rack, I might also recommend looking into the Yakima Stage 2. Again, not the easiest to work with. It's still 108 pounds, so very heavy, but you do get slightly better weight capacity for the bikes. It has a light kit that you can add on aftermarket from Yakima, and you can find that here, so it will improve visibility. And the handle to tilt it and fold it is located at the end of the rack, where it's much more accessible when it's fully loaded. Still going to be heavy, but at least you can reach it. So if you liked all that, though, and you think that it's going to be a good fit for you, then this has just been our quick look at the Kuat Piston Pro on our 2021 Ford Ranger. Thanks for watching.